much shorter than the one in my previous video. That one was extremely long, but we have shorter, quicker, still terrifying stories that I'm going to read for you guys today. So sit back, relax, turn a light on or off, whatever you prefer, and let's just dive into it. But before that, really quick, I wanted to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion. And right here, as you can see, I have my coldest water bottle that, as you guys know, I'm working with them right now, and you can still get one of these bad boys or a smaller one, even a bigger one. If you click on the link in my description, you can also enter a giveaway. If you can just use my code, you get 10% off. It's all good stuff, it's all fun stuff, and Christmas is coming up, so maybe you guys can, so you can definitely get a gift for a loved one, friend, family member, whatever you want. Gotta stay hydrated, and you know, look how sleek that is, nice and black. So other than that, I also have a Patreon. All of my links are in the description if you ever want to click on that. I got my TikTok, got Patreon, got all the good stuff. So just a little bit of shameless self-promotion, and now we can dive into the scary stories. The first story that we have here is called Blurry by That One Cricket 101, and I'm going to leave the link to all of these stories in the description, you know, just so everyone gets their fair share of credit. So, I got my first pair of glasses last week. My parents didn't think I needed them at first, but the doctor said that there was something wrong with more than just my eyes that was apparently pretty common, and that I needed specially prescribed glasses for my own good. He said that many people were never given the chance to see the way I would, so I was lucky to get them. I thought he meant cars and faraway words would become less blurry, but over the span of a couple days, many more things have become more clear. I started seeing nightmare creatures all around. I'd never seen them before, like in the corners of my room and in darkened parking lots. I took my glasses off for the first time today, and let me just say, it's amazing how quickly demons and creatures turn into trees and shadows. I know I'm not seeing the truth, but I'm a simple person. I'd rather things remain blurry, just the way it is for everyone else. Spooky. The next story is We Didn't Question Why by Movie Man. We didn't question why the small town we'd found, after getting lost in the countryside, wasn't on the map. We didn't question why the shopkeeper in town didn't have eyebrows or hair on his head. We didn't question why he looked so strangely, greedily at us. We didn't question why the gas at the station we stopped at was so cheap. We didn't question why the clerk at the station, where are our eyebrows and hair, insisted on making a phone call in the back before ringing us up. We didn't question why the funny man outside by our car let us know the sun was going down. We didn't question why so many bald people stood on the street, watching us frantically leave their town behind. We didn't question why we began pulling our hair out, or why we decided to turn around and head back to town. We knew why. The next story is The Devil. I always had a problem with sleeping growing up. Many times I'd get sleep paralysis, but after I blessed my room, it hasn't happened in months. This happened to me about a year ago. I woke up in the middle of the night, frozen. If I tried to move, I'd get a really loud ringing noise in both my ears. It would get louder each time I moved. I was terrified. I was too scared to open my eyes, but I felt a presence of someone in the room with me. My room isn't completely dark, because I have a small blue nightlight. I open my eyes and see a very tall, dark figure with two horns on each side of his head just standing there in the corner of my room, facing me. I panic and try to move my body. The ringing gets louder and louder and louder, and I can feel myself crying. I close my eyes, and in my head start saying, God will protect me, God will protect me. Then I hear a low, evil voice say, God can't help you anymore. The next story is The Old Man in the Well. Keith was 12 the first time the old man in the well spoke to him. Keith was out playing after dark on the family's small farm near the well. The old well had beams supporting a rope and pulley with a bucket attached, even though Keith was told that the well ran dry before he was born. Suddenly, he heard someone say his name in a low, slow, raspy voice. Keith whirled around and saw no one. A look of confusion spreads across his face as he heard it again. Keith. This time, it was said with more force and a bit louder. The voice sounded like one of the old farmers who liked to smoke, thought Keith. Looking down the well, Keith heard the same voice asking, Have you got anything tasty? Keith couldn't see anything past the first 12 or so feet down the well, even though there was a full moon. Who are you? How'd you get down there? Keith asked. If you give me something tasty, I'll reward you, replied the voice. All Keith had were some cookies he had stuffed in his pocket as he left to play. He put those in the bucket and lowered it. He had lowered it nearly 40 feet and was literally at the end of his rope when he no longer felt the weight of the bucket on the rope. 20 seconds passed, and he felt the weight of the bucket again and began to pull the bucket up. As he finished pulling the bucket up to the top, he heard the voice say, No nice. Keith saw a reflection in the bucket and saw a rectangular piece of silver metal, about the size of an army dog tag. It was completely flat and smooth. Want fresh, the voice said. Even though Keith tried to talk to the old man again, there was no response. Keith made up a story about where he found the metal and took it to his father, who took it into town and confirmed it was 1 ounce of pure silver. After that, Keith kept it a secret. He took a while to discover that the old man was only there on the nights of full moons. Keith quickly learned that only live things he put in the well would be rewarded, but only once for each item and once every full moon. So one of each kind of animal was lowered down the well and rewarded. Keith now had a cigar box, mostly full of silver pieces, by the time he was 16, but had run out of different animals to get rewarded for. It was around this time that a local farmhand went missing. It was also the same time that Keith was rewarded with gold pieces for the first time. Once Keith took over the farm, temp workers seemed to vanish every now and then, without explanation from the farm. The old man had finally found something tasty enough to always reward. Okay. The next story is The Light. We make fun of little kids for one thing, leaving lights on everywhere. They turn lights on in every room as if some sort of security blanket, and if you ever force them to turn it off, they cry and scream, and eventually you give in. The only time they turn them off is with their parents. They feel safe, so very safe. I'm the monster that lives in your closet. I'm friends with the one under your bed and the one in the shadows. When you see us, you flee to your mommy and daddy. But we're not here to hurt you. We're here to protect you. If you think we're scary, just wait till you see their true form. They masquerade as one of you, and you can never tell. You humans must be blind. Your true monsters sleep just down the hall. They pretend to love you, but it won't last. They try to convince us to let them in, but don't worry. We really love you, and we'll protect you. So when you see a shadow flit, or a figure in the closet, remember, we scary monsters protect you from the human ones. So you're safe with us, for now. The next story is Wedding Day. I first met my wife in high school. Her beautiful, sparkling eyes drew me in. They were a reflection of heaven, and her voice a chorus of angels. I proposed after we graduated from college, and we planned our future together. But things have changed since then. She's been acting strange lately. In bed, she'd toss and turn all night, muttering under her breath. Some nights, I'd hear other strange noises, like faint screams. I still loved her, though. We decided to get married at our local church, but before I knew it, I was waiting at the altar for her to walk down the aisle. I nodded to the priest and signaled the man sitting in the front row. We pinned her on top of the altar as the priest wrapped her arms and legs in chains. She hissed and howled, her body breathing in agony. The priest grasped the crucifix in front of her face and began. I wasn't going to let her go. I wanted my wife back. Jeez. The next story we're going to read is Go to Bed. Jacob decided to stay home when his mother went out. She told him to go to bed at 11, but unfortunately, he couldn't hear her over the sound of his music. Jacob waved his mother goodbye as she closed the door. Jacob spent an hour and a half playing with his phone. Games, YouTube videos, movies, music. He even texted his best friend for a while until she no longer replied. He didn't pay any attention at the time, until his phone battery hit 10%. Jacob realized that his mother never called or texted in all the time that he had his phone. Jacob sent her a text. "Hey," no reply. He was confused as to why she wouldn't answer him. She always answered her phone. His confusion chilled as the night fell and midnight rose. He sent another. "Mom, where are you?" Again, no answer. "Sweetie?" A familiar voice rang out from behind the couch. It sounded like his mother's, but it wasn't. Not entirely. It was warped. Crinkling like folded tinfoil, Jacob jumped and spun around, only for thick black hair to consume his sight. "Why haven't you gone to bed?" Next one is The Paper Airplane. My bedroom was upstairs. I had a good view from my window to see the new neighbors move in next door early in the morning. There was a man and a woman carrying boxes into the house. They must have been a couple. My eyes traveled to the neighbor's vacant upstairs bedroom window, which was directly across from mine. It was open, and inside was a girl who looked about my age. She saw me and motioned for me to open my window, so I did. She leaned out the window, curved her hand around her mouth, and whispered, "Nice to meet you. I'm Sarah." I laughed. "Nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm Sam." She smiled. "Keep your window open," she said, and moved out of sight. I was confused. Keep my window open? She returned with something in her hand, then tossed it over to me. It was a paper airplane. It slowly and gently made its way through my window, onto my floor behind me. I walked over and picked it up. On top was written, "Open." I opened it, and there was a message. "Hey, Sam, I'll come over tonight and introduce myself." I thought it was a bit strange, and wrote back, "Come over tonight? What do you mean?" I turned around and to toss it back, but she wasn't there. The window was still open, so I tossed it in anyway, thinking she'll reply sooner or later. It was late into the evening, and still no reply from Sarah. My mom invited the new neighbors over for dinner. I figured this is what Sarah meant by coming over tonight. "Honey, come down for dinner," my mom shouted. I went downstairs into the dining room to sit at the table, but I didn't see Sarah, just her parents. I couldn't help but ask, "Where's Sarah?" The man and woman stared at me, as if I said something out of place. "Excuse me?" the man said. I repeated myself, "Sarah, your daughter?" The woman put her hands up, covering her mouth. Tears flowed down her face. The man stood. "Our daughter died a year ago in an accident. I don't know what you're up to, but that's enough." They both left the house immediately. Mom glared at me. "Why would you do that, son? Just go to your room." A flurry of confusion was spinning in my head. I couldn't speak. I made my way back up to my room, turned on my light, and lay on my bed. Then a paper airplane flew through my window, elegantly landing on my floor. I picked it up and looked out the window. Sarah was standing in the darkness of her room. My heart was pounding. She moved closer until the moonlight hit her face, her eyes dark and skin gray. I looked down to read the message. Behind you. My lights flickered off. The floorboards behind me squeaked, a dark whisper into my ear. Sam. And the last story that we're going to be reading is A Mirror Entity. No one believed me when I told them that my reflection in the mirror was alive. Grow up, dude. You're not 5. You're 24. That was all they said to me while laughing, as a response to my story. Well, I have to admit, it was indeed sounded like a typical fear of a 5-year-old. But I swear to God it was true. I couldn't remember since when my reflection came to life, but I remembered that it wasn't like that when I was a child. It was recently, I was sure. And it wasn't a ghost. Well, your reflection was alive, looked like an act of a ghostly thing, but no, mine wasn't a ghost. It felt to me as if it was a creature, an entity who lived behind the mirror, or trapped in there. I couldn't tell why or how. What I could tell was my reflection was constantly trying to grab me, as if it was going to pull me inside the mirror while I jumped out. Ever since I realized that my reflection was alive and constantly trying to grab me inside the mirror, I always did my best to keep my distance from reflective surfaces. Like when I brushed my teeth every night, for example, I always stood a few meters from the mirror, so it wouldn't be able to grab me. The entity in the mirror was constantly showing a grumpy and angry face every time it was just the two of us in the room. No matter how I tried to smile in front of the mirror, the entity behind it never smiled. Never. It always looked grumpy and angry. One day, I took off from my flat for a sightseeing in the mall nearby, when suddenly an earthquake occurred. It was a huge one. Everyone was hysterical. They were running around in panic, looking for shelter. I ran to cover myself under a table to avoid getting hit by anything that fell. But I was too late. I didn't realize something fell from above me and hit me in the head. I fell down and groaned from the pain. As the pain slowly faded, I started to look around. The earthquake had stopped. The mall was slightly dark. The lights were out. It was messy in there. I gasped when I noticed something shiny not far from me. I turned my head and saw a mirror, probably from the fitting room near me. I crawled away as far as I could, even though my head and my legs were hurt. Right there and then, I saw my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in forever, I saw the entity behind the mirror smiling at me. A devilish smile. A sense of horror grasped me as I saw the entity waving at me from behind the mirror, as if it was saying goodbye, for good. And that is the last of the scary stories that I'll be reading to you today. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Some of those are actually very creepy, so that's always fun. But I hope that everyone has a great and safe Halloween, and you eat lots of candy, maybe watch a scary movie or two, and enjoy it. So, with that being said, good night, sleep tight, and I will see you lovelies again very